My name is Dan Scripps, Chair of the Michigan Public Service Commission. I call this meeting of the Commission to order on June 6, 2024 at 1 o'clock p.m. in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Present?
Present.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Today's meeting is being held in person at the LV Everhard Center at 301 Fulton Street West in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We are also hosting this meeting remotely using Microsoft Teams. Teams is compatible with all browsers except Safari. Telephone relay service is available through the phone option. If you are participating via Microsoft Teams, you may also turn on the live captions by clicking on the More button at the top right of the Teams window, then clicking on Language and Speech from the drop-down menu, and finally clicking on Turn on Live Captions. As indicated in the notice for today's meeting, if we lose the remote connection, the Commission will not recess. The meeting will be recorded and available for future reference on the Commission's website. In addition, the Commissioners can receive comments via mpsc_commissioners@michigan.gov. And for reference, this email is also included in today's meeting notice. We will have the opportunity, as always, for the public to make comments as provided in the agenda. A few notes about this. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and one per person. If you would like to make verbal comments, you must do so in person or remotely through Microsoft Teams or by calling into the meeting by phone. For individuals attending in person and who want to make a verbal comment, please fill out a comment card, which looks like this. For individuals participating remotely by Microsoft Teams and who want to make a verbal comment, you may click on the raise hand button at any time to be queued up for comment. And individuals participating remotely by phone who want to make a verbal comment may press *5 at any time to be queued up for comment. Public commenters on both Microsoft Teams and on the phone are added to the same speaker queue and will be called upon in the order they enter the speaker queue. Please do not lower your hand or press *5 again, or you'll be removed from the queue and lose your place in line. To minimize disruptions, attendees participating by Microsoft Teams or by phone will be muted until we reach the time for public comment. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
I move for the approval of the agenda for today's Commission meeting.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve today's agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The agenda is approved. The next item of business on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the May 23rd, 2024 Commission meeting.
I move for the approval of the minutes from the May 23rd, 2024 Commission meeting.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the minutes from the May 23rd, 2024 Commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The Commission meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2024 are approved. The next item of business on the agenda is the approval of orders on the consent agenda, and today the Commission is assisted by Staff Attorney Blair Renfro. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Good afternoon. Today's consent agenda consists of one communications matter and one STEAM matter. The proposed orders for these matters have been thoroughly vetted by the Commission's technical and legal staff and are ready for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. I move for the approval of the orders on the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the orders on the consent agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The orders on the consent agenda are approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4A1 is case number U-21544, which involves an application, as amended, filed by TrueConnect Communications, Inc. for eligible telecommunication carrier designation for access to Universal Service Fund support throughout the state of Michigan. The order before you conditionally approves the application as stated in the order.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21544.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21544 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B1 is case number U-21163, which involves an application filed by DTE Electric Company seeking ex parte approval of an amended rate schedule D13 XL high load factor rate. The order before you approves the application.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21163.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21163 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B2 is case number U-21400, which involves a matter on the Commission's own motion to commence a work group for the consideration of financial incentives and penalties as they relate to the reliability and resilience of the electric power system in Michigan. Staff member Kayla Gibbs will describe this order.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Kayla Gibbs, a Commissioner Advisor at the Michigan Public Service Commission, or MPSC. On April 24th, 2023, the Commission issued an order in case number U-21400 establishing the Financial Incentives and Disincentives Work Group to develop metrics relating to reliability, including but not limited to the following metrics: System Average Interruption Duration Index, SAIDI, including and excluding major event days, which typically arise from storm damage; System Average Interruption Frequency Index, or SAIFI; customers experiencing multiple interruptions, CMI; and Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, CAIDI, all of which I'll describe in more detail. The work group was also tasked to develop metrics relating to resilience, which includes but are not limited to downwire response time and the frequency and duration of outages during extreme weather, using the recently updated service quality and reliability standards for electric distribution systems rules as a baseline. MPSC staff hosted virtual engagement sessions on October 10th, 2023, November 30th, 2023, and February 12th, 2024, for interested parties to discuss appropriate metrics and their respective incentives and disincentive mechanisms. In addition, the Commission solicited written, initial, and reply comments from interested parties filed to case number U-21400. On May 3rd, 2024, MPSC staff filed a status report proposing 7 metrics that address the average length of customer outages and the amount of time the utilities take to restore power both following storms and in calm weather conditions, the number of customers experiencing 4 or more outages per year, and evaluation of the poorest performing circuits. The proposed metrics with associated incentives and penalties are as follows. First, SAIDI excluding major event days. Averaging the lowest SAIDI excluding major event day values in the last 3 years for the baseline, the utility would incur a penalty if this metric increased by 5% from the baseline. An incentive threshold would result from a 10% improvement rate with a deadband to incorporate variability. This metric measures the average duration of outages following major storms in minutes. Second, SAIDI all weather. Using a 5-year average, the utility would be assessed a penalty if a 5% cumulative increase occurs. The incentive would result from a 10% improvement from recent performance with a deadband to incorporate variability. This metric measures the average duration of outages during all weather conditions in minutes. Third, 48-hour catastrophic storm restoration. Per the MPSC service quality rules, utilities are required to restore 90% of all customers within 48 hours during catastrophic storm. A penalty would be assessed if 90% or less customers are not restored within 48 hours, but incentive would be assessed if a utility can restore more than 90% of customers within 48 hours during a catastrophic storm. This metric measures the percentage of customers who have not had their power restored within 48 hours following a major storm. Fourth, 72-hour catastrophic storm restoration. A utility would be assessed a penalty if 95% or less of customers are not restored within 72 hours during a catastrophic storm, but can earn an incentive if a utility restores more than 95% of customers in 72 hours during a catastrophic storm. This metric measures the percentage of customers who have not had their power restored 72 hours following a major storm. Fifth, 24-hour storm restoration after gray sky events. A gray sky event is when 1% or less than 10% of customers experience a sustained power outage. Per the MPSC's service quality rules, utilities are required to restore 90% of customers within 24 hours. A utility would be assessed a penalty if the rule is not met, but can earn an incentive if the utility exceeds the rule. This metric measures the percentage of customers who have not had their power restored 24 hours after a smaller, localized storm. Sixth is CMI 4. A utility would be assessed a penalty if 6% or more of all customers experience 4 or more outages. An incentive would be determined if less than 6% of all customers experience less than 4 outages. Finally, worst performing circuit evaluation. A utility would be assessed a penalty if a circuit appears more than once in the top 10 list of worst performing circuits within 5 years. The order before you requests interested parties to file initial and reply comments by July 12th, 2024 and August 23rd, 2024, respectively on the straw proposal that was filed to this docket on May 3rd, 2024. A virtual engagement session will be hosted by MPSC staff by August 7th of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs.
Thank you. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21400.
I second the motion.
Before we vote on this order, I want to offer just a couple remarks. First, this has been an intentionally iterative process, and the back and forth between participants involved has strengthened the results. We're trying to find something that works, that leads to meaningful improvements in the reliability of utility distribution systems. And I believe that's a goal that we all share. Having the opportunity to review and digest a broad array of perspectives on how best to achieve that shared goal is an important piece of how we get there. And I'll just fully acknowledge that the straw proposal has changed over time based on what we've heard. I think that's a real strength. And as we work to finalize our approach on how best to use penalties and incentives to better connect how utilities earn money for their shareholders with the reliability performance their customers experience, I'm increasingly confident that the feedback into this process strikes the right balance between perspectives and will result in meaningful improvement. Specifically, the metrics that Ms. Gibbs walked through and the weighting of those metrics are focused on the core pain points for customers from poor reliability. The duration of outages overall, how long customers are out during major storm events, how many customers wait more than 2 days, more than 3 days to have their power restored during storms, and how many wait 24 hours or more in less severe, how many experience 4 or more outages each year, and how many are on the worst performing circuits year after year. I think that focus on these key pain points can lead to better results in the places where poor reliability is most frustrating for customers. The next step in this process is to move into phase 2 of what we've deemed a reliability plus approach to performance-based regulation, and ultimately the performance of the distribution system. The first phase has been appropriately focused on outages, but with the growth of distributed energy resources and the benefits those resources can provide, we need to ensure that this continues to be a forward-looking exercise. As such, the staff identified a number of elements in their May 3rd report where we might turn our focus as we move into phase 2, including equity considerations, grid modernization, the integration of distributed energy resources, and a focus on resilience. And so the process from here will be that we'll continue to seek comments from all involved on phase 1, and we'll identify next steps that we'll articulate in the fall. And then at the same time, begin work on that parallel track around Reliability Plus, including comments on the topic areas and a work group session held this summer on those issues of equity, grid modernization, distributed energy resources, and resilience. And finally, I'll want to close by just articulating my thanks for the work by all involved. We've had a diverse array of perspectives at the table working through these issues, and I believe that involvement and the sharing of those perspectives has only strengthened the process. But I particularly want to thank Ms. Gibbs, Mike Byrne, our Chief Operating Officer, and the rest of the staff at the MPSC for really rolling up their sleeves and doing the hard work to get this right. Is there any additional discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21400 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B3 is case number U-21410, which involves an application filed by Consumers Energy Company for reconciliation of its 2022 demand response program costs. The order before you approves the reconciliation and financial incentive as specified in the order and provides additional directives for the company's future demand response reconciliation proceedings.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21410.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21410 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B4 is case number U-21618, which involves a matter on the Commission's own motion to review the medical certification form under the Consumer Standards and Billing Practices for electric and natural gas service. The order before you approves the revised medical certification form.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21618.
I second the motion.
And just a few words on this one before we vote as well. This came out of the Commission's Energy Affordability and Accessibility Collaborative, and really began with a realization that a number of customers seeking a medical certification form that would ultimately have the effect of delaying a shutoff notice were being denied, in part because the forms were incomplete. Often because the information provided on the second page of the form that needs the medical professional to certify that they do meet the eligibility criteria often fail to include the ultimate customer's name. So this is just a simple fix, but an important one for customers who are struggling to pay their bills in part because of medical complications. And ultimately, I think, gives us a meaningful path to ensure that those who are eligible for the medical certification form and the shutoff protections get those. I'd note that this form exists in its current format on our website and is translated into 8 different languages. And so with the approval of this certification form today, we will shortly have the updated form available in Spanish, Arabic, Vietnamese, and simplified Chinese, and are working with our interpreters to ensure that we round out the other 4, Japanese, Korean, Bengali, and Russian, in the near future. So I appreciate the work involved by the participants in the Energy Affordability and Accessibility Collaborative and the work of our staff to bring this forward. Is there any additional discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21618 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B5 is case number U-21646, which involves an application filed by Consumers Energy Company seeking ex parte approval of amendments to the Large Economic Development Tariff. The order before you approves the application.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21646.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21646 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4B6 is case number U-21654, which involves a contested case proceeding established by the Commission to develop and adopt a framework energy waste reduction program and to determine the alternative compliance payments for effective administration under MCL 460.1091. The order before you opens the docket, directs the Commission staff to host a collaborative and file its proposed framework with supporting testimony, and sets the dates for deadlines for the collaborative, a pre-hearing conference, and petitions to intervene in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21654.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21654 is approved. I recognize Mr. Renfro.
Item 4C1 is case number U-21269, which involves an application filed by Consumers Energy Company seeking approval of its gas cost recovery plan and gas cost recovery factors for the 12 months ending March 31st, 2024. The order before you approves the application and accepts the company's 5-year forecast.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21269.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21269 is approved. We've now reached the time reserved for members of the public to address the Commission. As mentioned in the notice for today's meeting, we will take public comments in the following order. First, from individuals attending in person, and then from individuals participating remotely, either through Microsoft Teams or the phone, who have entered the speaker queue. As a reminder, this public comment period is for commissioners to listen to comments and concerns, not to answer specific questions. When providing comment, please indicate your name and where you live if you're willing to share, so that we have it for our records. And again, please limit comments to 1 per person and keep them brief, no longer than 3 minutes, so that we have a chance to hear from all who would like to comment. We do have a number of comment cards here, and so I'll invite people to come to the podium and microphone in order. I'll announce the person who's up and then the person who is on deck, and so that we can work through these. And the first individual is Carol Sanborn, and then Diane Marie Wolscheid. And I think I got it right this time. Excellent.
Okay, I am Carol Sanborn, and I live in Lebanon Township, northwest Clinton County, near the Maple River. I oppose the proposed Nelson to Oneida transmission line and U21471 as it is currently designed. Public Act 30 requires an applicant to submit a proposed line and an alternate line, yet METC's proposed line and its alternative line are identical for almost 10 miles. At my neighbor Celine Har's property, both the proposed and alternate routes conjoin. There is only one route all the way up to the Nelson Road substation. For this reason, the application in U21471 does not comply with Act 30's requirement that an applicant for a certificate of public convenience and necessity must submit a proposed route and an alternative route. Therefore, the application should not be approved. If renewable energy projects like the Gratiot County Wind Farm require new transmission lines, the public convenience and necessity factors that Act 30 requires this commission to consider certainly include preserving residential property and preventing these lines from coming too close to our homes when it is avoidable. The homes are our homes are our sanctuary where we feel safe and comfortable. They represent the biggest investment most people make in their lives. According to a spokesperson at the open house about this proposed line, METC used an algorithm to plan the route. This was meant to make it sound as if there is no choice but the route that METC has proposed. But an algorithm is just a set of choices expressed as in a mathematical formula. Whoever designed METC's algorithm clearly did not include proper consideration of alternatives that are available to avoid impairing the value of so many residential properties by routing the line through non-residential areas and making use of existing transmission line easements and rights of way. I urge the commission to review this proposed route critically and to evaluate it as if it were being sited to pass through your own backyards. That will make it clear that alternatives exist that will not harm residential property owners in sensitive wetland areas that the proposed route will greatly impair. And then I just wanted to add, I'm wearing a poppy today because today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Never forget those who have given their lives so that others enjoy living their lives in freedom.
Thank you, Ms. Sanborn. Diane Wolscheid, and then Anthony Wolscheid.
Hi.
Hello.
May I approach?
Sure.
I actually did a picture here, and I just wanted to use it to kind of let you guys know. This is our barn, and here is our son's house. That is the line that they're trying to go through. This is from their property, looking at our barn. And here's the proposed route with it right here. And it doesn't even follow any fence rows or anything, but it's this close that they want to come all the way through and stuff. And this is just kind of some of our centennial stuff. And if you guys want, up here in Michigan, there's some magnets of our barns with them. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Diane Wolscheid. We live on the proposed route of the ITC 345 kV transmission infrastructure line, case U-21471, Project Nelson to Oneida Road. We live in Eagle Township. I'm asking that it be altered. The proposed route would go through the center, north to south of our 60-acre family centennial farm. This farm's been our family for 129 years, since 1895. It will also get our daughter's and husband's new house and land at another address. We are registered with the Michigan Historical Commission and the Michigan Barn Preservation. We've restored our barn and windmill. We proudly display our Centennial Farm plaque. Our son and family have built a house on this property, and hopefully our two grandsons will too. The proposed right-of-way is less than 200 feet from our son's house, and it goes between our barn and our son's house with only 300 feet between them. We have a mowed path between our houses and theirs, so our grandsons can safely get from one house to the other almost daily, if not more. They ride their bikes, motorcycles, fly kites, drones there. The proposed line would go over the top of them every time they go from their house to Grandma and Grandpa's. That worries me. I see it as a safety risk. because 9 and 12-year-olds, you never know what's going to happen, what they might do. I love my family, and as a family, we still get together for family meals. We share a garden, have campfires together. I make my husband take our motorhome out of the barn, and his grandsons and I camp by the garden, and that's right there. We watch Northern Lights, which you can see. We've seen them there a few times recently, and it's awesome. We are a family that believes our Centennial Farm should stay together, not be divided by a huge transmission line through the center of our farm. It'd be different if it followed a fence row, but it doesn't even do that. I thought that Michigan was a state that protects Centennial Farms and its history. Please don't let eminent domain ruin our Centennial family farm. This is our kids' and grandsons' family inheritance. Please don't take part of it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilshide. Anthony Wilshide, and then Robert Brennan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Anthony Wilshide. I live in Eagle Township, and well, you guys have already heard from me a couple times. I'm not gonna plead my sob story relating to the eminent domain of my family property again. But I am here in opposition to Michigan Public Service Commission case number U21471, also known as the ITC Nelson Road to Oneida Transmission Line Project. So today I want to talk to you guys about the way these projects are being handled. These projects are supposed to be for the public good, but it seems the routes are being selected solely based on cost rather than the impact on the public. I don't object to building our infrastructure. I object to the cost to the public that could be greatly minimized. We need to consider historical sites, wetlands, personal properties impacted, as well as properties already owned by utility companies for this use. So, according to ITC's project website, routes are selected based on minimizing impact to sensitive resource areas while maximizing the use of existing siting opportunities. Also noting criteria such as length, line angles, nearby residences, public facilities, wetlands, historical and archaeological sites, and cropland, center pivot irrigation presence. What I want to point out to the Commission is that the primary route, which my house is on, only utilizes 0.29 miles of already sited right-of-way property, while the secondary route actually utilizes 7.9 miles of already owned property. The property in question has been under utility ownership for 50 plus years, which means that all the people that are on this line either bought it already knowing that this was going to go in, or they were probably paid for it 50 plus years ago. Those of us that are on the primary route are just kind of being taken by surprise. Like, honestly, I wouldn't have built my house there if I would have known that they were going to put that right through my backyard. So, I also want to note that the secondary route, just the bottom half of the secondary route affects 57 properties, while the primary route affects 109 properties. And it actually has more line angles than the secondary route. So please just look over the projects in a manner that doesn't just utilize a cost comparison. We, the public, should not be forced to give up our rights so that a billion-dollar company can make profits. That's all I've got. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wilshide. Robert Brennan, and then Val Wilshide Brennan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Robert Brennan. I live in Eagle Township. Here I'm also on the ITC Oneida to Nelson Road project. This crosses my property. In the last 2 years, I spent my life savings on this property, building a home, and now ITC wants to destroy the property value and all my future plans on this property. This project is not needed. ITC states this project will avoid future upgrades and replace the facilities due to age and condition. They should not be granted incentives to take land, build new transmission lines instead of maintaining and upgrade their old infrastructure. It is feasible in today's technology to increase line capacity using high-performance conductors, which can be promoted by current administration and the GRIP grants. The government needs to put a stop to this out-of-control profit companies caring about their stockholders and require them to start investing in their existing infrastructure. by making ITC invest in their existing infrastructure, the state will actually create more jobs that are longer lasting than a quick fix like this one. Please stop these companies from taking advantage of Michiganders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Val Walscheid Brennan, and then David Bolins. Okay, all right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak again today. My name is Val Walscheid Brennan. I am here once again today regarding ITC's Nelson to Oneida Road 345 kV project, case U21471. This project disproportionately affects my entire family, as you've heard, by destroying all 3 of our family homes and our properties, including our registered historical Centennial Farm. No words can describe how devastating this is for us. What we have can never be replaced. That being said, I'm asking for your help today in fighting to protect Michigan's historical Centennial Farms against eminent domain. It is unethical for a for-profit company like ITC to ruin rural Michigan's historical preservation. We need to stand up against this, and the time is now. Please do the right thing to help Michiganders protect our agricultural heritage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Frederick Baker, and then Erica Bolden. Mr. Baker.
Chairman Scripps, Commissioners Paratek and Carrion. First, I apologize for my phone, and thank you for not confiscating it. My name is Frederick Baker. My office is in Lansing. My home is in East Lansing, and I'm going to be representing these interveners from whom you've heard this afternoon. It's clear from your past decisions and from public statements that you have made that this commission is determined to ensure that Michigan's transmission grid is fit to meet the needs of Michigan's future. But it's also clear from those same decisions and statements that you are committed to ensuring that that grid is improved in a manner consistent with Act 30. And with consideration of the effects of any proposed line on the public health and safety, all applicable state, federal environmental standards, laws, and rules, and with due consideration of the importance of preserving and protecting open space, irreplaceable farmland, delicate ecosystems, and the value of the property of those affected by any line you approve. In that connection, I want to note and draw to your attention that on March 13 of this year, 7 months after filing its plan documents in U21471, and after holding open houses in each of the affected townships along its proposed route, and after extensive public comments, some of them multiple comments by the same people, but many, you have over 40 on your website in the docket. METC filed an abandoned plant incentive application with FERC under Section 219 of the Federal Power Act and under Order 269. And that application makes interesting reading. One passage from it I want to draw to your attention because it illustrates how thoughtless the proposed route in this case is. At page 6, METC stated, quote, while the project has been selected through MISO's long-range transmission project process, development of the project has not yet reached the stage where METC has begun applying for the majority of numerous federal, state, and local permits required for development of the project. It goes on to state, like any transmission developer, METC has limited, if any, insight into the environmental factors, e.g. endangered habitats, migratory paths, etc., that will shape the path of the project and could conceivably prevent its ultimate construction and operation. Consider that METSI did not evaluate the environmental impact of the project for which it filed a plan in August of last year, and still had not done so less than 3 months ago, more than 7 months after filing that plan and after hearing public comment and conducting open houses. That highlights the need for this commission's careful scrutiny of this proposed plan. This commission is the last line of defense under Act 30 for the values that Act 30 requires applicants and this commission to consider in deciding where a transmission line should be laid and whether to issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity. You've heard that an alternative line exists that has 7 miles of right-of-way that can be readily used to avoid the kinds of consequences that we've heard about from other commenters today. The public relies upon you to uphold the values reflected in Act 30, and I thank you for your time.
Erica Bolden, and then Nancy Morales.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Erica Bolden, and I am Line 5 Engagement Coordinator with the Michigan Climate Action Network. I also work locally as a climate justice organizer with the Urban Core Collective, and I'm here today to talk to you about the 2023 Clean Energy and Jobs Act. Many of those who I work with, I call my unofficial colleagues. We see each other on a weekly basis, exchanging ideas, frustrations, and concerns for our changing climate. We know what equity means for our community. We, and you know, that our climate is changing. And we know what is changing our climate. We know what is impacting our air quality, our health, and draining the communities who are facing the worst of both. We cannot afford for you to leave with a lack of understanding of what is needed and expected of you. So we ask you to hear us and to take the tools that we are giving you today to ensure that all Michiganders will benefit from that legislation. The definition that we use here to address truck traffic in a coalition in Grand Rapids locally is we define equity as the state, quality, or ideal of being just, impartial, and balanced. The concept of equity is synonymous with justice for those historically not in positions of power and accountability for those who are. It is helpful to think of equity as not simply a desired state of affairs or of a lofty value. To achieve and sustain equity, it needs to be thought of as a structural and systemic concept. So if equity is the standard, then it has to be done indeed in practice. And this means addressing the BIPOC and lower income neighborhoods that are within sacrifice zones due to toxic infrastructure causing this cumulative impact. How do we plan to address the harm already done? Will we bring substantial opportunities to educate and prepare those who are closest to the impacts for these renewable energy jobs? And how are you willing to redefine what affordability means based on the philosophy of equity with those living in sacrifice zones in mind? One suggestion would be fair and retroactive outage compensation to reverse the damages that have already been done. And then what tools do you use to achieve advanced equity standards? Many of people in the line of work I do use the City Health Dashboard as a resource. And then specific to the IRP, 100% is just that, 100%. There is no room for off-ramps in the legislation. There's no room for false solutions like biogas from factory farms, waste incineration, nuclear energy, or natural gas with carbon capture. What does clean actually mean? And again, are you willing to bring a new definition to these meanings? Renewable energy means absolutely no new fossil fuel infrastructure, which is why I'm also here to tell you to shut down Line 5 and stop their proposed tunnel project, along with the other 27,000 comments made by Michigan residents. And although I'm here today, I did not see widespread promotion to encourage low-income individuals to participate. The advocates who are here today are here because we ensured each other would be, and this room can and should be filled. The testimony you will hear today are from lived experiences, and that will be our history, but this is not public, and nor is this a discussion. Comments are not participation, and we do hope that you do better. Michigan Climate Action Network and Urban Core Collective have tons of resources on our websites, at our events, and we encourage you to reach out to us to utilize our expertise. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bolden. Nancy Morales, and then Dr. Saharsky.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Morales. I'm here as a volunteer with the MLCV, the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, but also as a employee of the Urban Core Collective working in climate justice. So I want to elevate some of the points that Erica already brought up. I think that a lot of times we were really quick to make a lot of these like adjustments and allowances for these multi-billion-dollar utility companies, and we're not really taking care of the people that we're, really standing for. Like one of the previous commenters mentioned, you guys are one of the last lines of defense between what these corporations can do and the general public. And I hope you remember that, we're hopefully here to serve the general public. I just want to touch a little bit about some clean and just energy transitions. Michigan does have some, they sound like kind of lofty goals when it comes to the clean energy transition, but I think that we can achieve it. We have money coming in from the federal government that should support those clean energy job transitions while still protecting workers' rights and making sure that everybody comes along with that transition and not just those that have maybe higher resources or more internal corporate stakeholder buy-ins. So I kind of just want to make sure that when we're considering the clean energy transition that we make sure that it is 100% renewable and not reliant on fossil fuels. And I feel like I should also make it clear that it's not just going to be one of these things that are a solution. I think it's going to take a really diversified approach to make sure that we have a really holistic and resilient energy grid that can provide power in various different scenarios. And obviously an investment in storage would be great too. For some examples of 100% renewable energy are like wind, solar, hydroelectric, and geothermal. And we would really like to oppose the use of so-called natural gas, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, nuclear power, biomass, waste to energy, which we know a lot of times these places or these approaches create a lot of sacrificial zones that impact the communities around them through either, for example, fracking, it pollutes the water table, or we think of the waste to energy incinerator and how that impacts air quality for certain neighborhoods. And a lot of times these are neighborhoods that have other impacts that are already affecting them. So when we think about what those look like when they're stacked up on each other, we can see that the cumulative impact is really quite huge. Some of the other ones that we would like to exclude are biomass, I already said that. Landfill gas. We also know that a lot of times landfill gas is really heavy in methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So again, we just really want to make sure that we're careful about not just where these things, not just excluding them, but the ones that we currently have, making sure that we're providing some kind of support to those communities that are already facing some of these negative health effects from being next to a lot of these very polluting kind of places. We also want to make sure that, especially when it comes to the job transition, that we're investing in education for these new types of jobs that are necessary for the clean energy transition. We want to make sure that maybe people that are working in fossil fuels can learn how to use those same job skills and maybe just translate them in a way that helps out with this new phase that we're getting into. I think we can all do it together, and I'm optimistic that you guys can help us make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Dr. Saharsky, and then Ruby Mullins.
Oh, again, I've talked to you before. It's Dr. Jim Saharsky, a good Ukrainian name. I talked to you last time about the impact on my own private property and its value, and you've heard from others about the impact on their centennial farms and the rural environment and all. I'm a retired environmental toxicologist and wildlife veterinarian from Michigan State University's College of Veterinary Medicine, 44 years on the faculty there. I'm considered a wildlife expert, and I'd like to talk about the impact on the environment. We brought publications. I've done postmortem exams on well over 1,500 bald eagles in the state of Michigan, and the primary cause of mortality is trauma and environmental pollutants and contaminants, pesticides. I've talked to the ITC folks about the chemicals that they need to use along the right-of-way and the concern of the impact on wetlands and fragile ecosystems. Their guy said everything you wanted to hear in these meetings, and their concern and his concern. He said, I have concern over what these chemicals do, but he said, what we don't know that they do is as scary as anything because, well, our group doing research on bald eagles for all those years, and literally I have received millions of dollars of grants from state and federal agencies to study the impact of contaminants on bald eagles and other endangered species. And the guy said, boy, we're really concerned about that. And said, we'd like to talk to you more. I gave him my credentials. I'm a consultant. I've spent 12 years on the Committee on Environmental Issues for the American Veterinary Medical Association. I'm boarded as a wildlife specialist in the American College of Zoological Medicine. They've never contacted me. I gave them copies of those articles, the scientific review and everything, that they could move the proposed route to across the river from where I'm at, because it actually goes between a manufactured wetlands done under the supervision of Department of Environmental Quality and the Looking Glass River on which I live. And those lines would pose electrocution and collision risks to several species, but we have ospreys and 2 bald eagles nesting within a quarter mile of our property. And we see trumpeter swans and other migratory birds, sandhill cranes and great blue herons and that use that corridor. And on a foggy morning like we had the other day, those power lines and even those towers aren't visible by these large birds. And if you look at the difference between the number of residences impacted by the primary route and their proposed alternative route, it makes no economical sense that they don't use the alternative route because there's so many different less properties impacted by it, and plus the right-of-way has already been secured by Consumers Energy for over 7 miles of that route. So I'm not sure why you guys would want to approve their application. It doesn't look like they've done their due diligence, and it really looks like the alternative route has to be way less of a headache and cheaper for them. Maybe they just don't want to pay Consumers Energy for the right-of-way that they'd have to secure. So I think I've said enough. I'm sorry to have to keep coming and bending your ear, but I'd really like to protect wildlife and the environment for future generations to have. And I'm not just talking about my property and my kids. I'm talking about the whole project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saharsky. I'll get it right next time. Ruby Newlands.
Hi, my name is Ruby Mullins, and I'm a recent high school graduate living in Holland, Michigan, and I am an intern here coming from Michigan League of Conservation Voters. And I'm kind of here to talk about the future. As a youth, and I talk to a lot of my peers, the future isn't looking right now too good for us. And with this recent Clean Energy and Jobs Act, we really do see a little bit of hope. But what we don't see is, I'll talk to a lot of my friends and stuff like that, but we don't see the information coming to us. We're not aware of what is happening. So one ask that I have is kind of getting that information out to the public. Again, and as was previously mentioned, these new jobs that are coming out are incredible, but we need to make sure that they're not only available, but the information is getting out there, both to the workforce that is currently working, that's gonna have to transition jobs, but the upcoming workforce. And while the work so far has really, really been good, we are not yet done. There's so much more that we need to be doing. And another thing I would like to highlight is the importance of renewable energy storage. Is while moving towards having completely renewable energy, which is very important, we need to make sure that we're having these storage units so it can be more of a long-term sustainable effort. And again, yes, thank you so much for the work that has been done, but we do have more to go. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. Congratulations on your graduation. I think that's all we have in terms of cards that have been filled out. Is there anybody else who would like to fill out a card to provide public comment? Please.
Greetings, commissioners. My name is Dr. Judith Sikarsky, related to the other Dr. Sikarsky that was up here. I put in a card, but perhaps they couldn't read it. May I approach? Okay. May I approach and offer some things? And also, is there a representative for the governor here? I just had some materials for her if there was. The last time. Also offered scientific studies. I'll just have 3 points to try to make short and sweet. The first one being to reiterate what my husband just said and offer you these scientific resource papers. They're white papers that have to be peer reviewed and all. One being Sources of Mortality in Bald Eagles in Michigan on 1986 and 2017. The other being Causes of Mortality in Eagles submitted to the National Wildlife Center 1975 to 2013. And if you look through these scientific papers, it does show that trauma ends up being, on the most part, the second cause of mortality in eagles. And then you could extrapolate to any of our flying wildlife, osprey, great blue herons, hawks and such. So that's just to say that there is documentable information as far as that they do cause trauma. So we actually live on a wildlife or a flight plane for these wild birds. And just as an example of how we live it, there's great blue herons that hunt on the Eagle River, which are in our backyard. And then they'll fly to the next source, the next wetlands, and they will deposit their back end ingredients. And it'll cover the house and the cars. If it wasn't kind of embarrassing, it would be hilarious. And so that's how we are on that flight plane from where we are. We've released a lot of wildlife there. So that was my first point. My second point is just to draw your attention to the ITC proposed project, high power transmission lines. This was done by a colleague of ours who I just really respect the research. I just want to bring to your attention that the properties affected with the proposed green line are 152. The alternate, you could say 152 parties, families, groups, farmers and such. The alternate route, 100. That's 2/3 of people who are affected. The miles of line are about the same. So then the current customer easements in place, which is what we're dealing with here. We're all about preserving our front yards and our backyards and our grandchildren's legacies. But if we've already have 11 easements in place, we've already kind of fought those battles versus 2. So I just wanted to point that out between the 2 proposed lines that accomplish the same goal. And then my third point is to challenge Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I truly applaud her renewable energy, her green energy, her clean energy efforts. I truly applaud that. I truly applaud her looking forward to the future to see what will maintain our energy the best. But I do challenge her to contact the Lawrence Livermore Lab in Livermore, California, This is one of our very high security federal labs that looks into matters of security, but also matters of renewable resources. And they have developed technology beyond our wildest imaginations that my son-in-law works there. This technology could be in place way sooner than we even think. So maybe beyond, I appreciate her looking farther on down the road, but maybe I just ask her, I implore her to look even farther on down the road of things that might come up that make the things that we're looking at right now obsolete. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Sikarsky. And I think it was your card that I had before. Okay, I think at this point we will go to the virtual options. And I do have one person queued up to comment, Andrew C.
Hello. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Andrew Collins. I live in Kentwood in Kent County. I'm a longtime volunteer with the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, advocating for policies to protect our water, land, and water, and thereby protect our health, safety, and way of life. I would like to thank the NPSC for the crucial work it does to ensure reliable and equitable utility services for all Michigan residents. I have some general comments. The Clean Energy and Jobs Act passed last year puts Michigan on a path for some of the fastest build out in the nation of renewable energy, like wind and solar. But the true promise of the Clean Energy and Jobs Act is also to lower energy costs with affordable clean energy, and then thereby create clean energy transition jobs and reduce dangerous pollution in our air and water. Those motivations need to stay central to the actions and decisions of the Commission. The Clean Energy and Jobs Act streamlines the process for citing clean energy projects like wind and solar, which ensures that local governments have a say in the process, while also maintaining that property owners are allowed to lease their land for these clean energy projects. In general terms, Michigan is strongest when we don't rely on foreign countries or on fossil fuels to secure our energy needs. So continuing to invest in solar and wind projects is necessary for the energy that we need right here at home. In conclusion, I want to thank the Commission for its continued commitment to holding public meetings around the state. Your efforts to engage with affected communities and listen to their concerns is invaluable, and I hope that continues. Thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I believe that wraps up the individuals who have indicated that they wish to provide public comment. I would note that the public can continue to submit comments at any time to the commissioners via email at mpsc_commissioners@michigan.gov. And again, that email is in the meeting notice for today's meeting and for all of our meetings. Before we conclude, we do have a few announcements, and Commissioner Carrion, I believe that you have an exciting announcement to share.
Yes, with a full year's advance notice. Last week, I had the chance to attend and participate as a member of the honorary committee for the annual conference of the National Utilities Diversity Council, or NUDC, in Charlotte, North Carolina, at Duke Energy's headquarters. And the mission of the NUDC is to educate, develop best practices, and guide efforts that promote diversity in the utilities and communications industries in terms of governance, employment, procurement, language access, customer service, and philanthropy. And this year's conference focused on topics related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging by exploring the question, why now so important? So one key update from the conference was that we were able to make the exciting announcement that the next annual conference will take place in Michigan on May 29th at next year at DTE's headquarters in Detroit. And so every conference gets its own name. And in the spirit of continuing the momentum from the Queen's Quorum in Charlotte, we aptly named our Detroit conference the Motown Momentum Medley. And so we look forward to making strides in areas of diversity, equity, as we heard today, and inclusion across the utilities and communications industry, so not only in our state, but as leaders for the entire country as it draws a national audience. So
Thank you. I believe you have an announcement as well.
Yeah, just on a more somber note, I'd like to acknowledge the devastation that was caused by the tornado in Livonia yesterday, which is just down the street from where I live, including a toddler's life lost due to a tree falling on a house in the disaster. It was extremely localized, high winds, with almost no warning as a result, that resulted in a tornado and power outages and extensive damage to the surrounding localized community. This is a very direct effect of the changing climate that we are seeing. I want to thank our first responders and line workers who are repairing the damage, and note that our thoughts go out to the Livonia community.
Thank you, Commissioner Pertic. I do also have a couple of announcements. First, to note that June is Pride Month. From its origins in the early 1970s after the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, Pride Month has evolved to recognize and celebrate the LGBTQ community and its many positive impacts on history, as well as the work outstanding regarding the ongoing pursuit of equality. Second, on June 19th, we will celebrate Juneteenth, marking the end of slavery in the United States. On June 19th, 1865, in downtown Galveston, Texas, Major General Gordon Granger announced the end of the Civil War and issued General Order No. 3, which demanded absolute equality among enslaved people and slaveholders. That day, which led to the liberation of enslaved people across Texas, is now celebrated as Juneteenth, which became a federal holiday in 2021, and last year became a state holiday in Michigan as well. And finally, as Ms. Sanborn noted, today marks the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, which proved to be a critical turning point in World War II and indeed in history. D-Day is the name given to the June 6, 1944 invasion of the beaches at Normandy in northern France by troops from the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, as well as other countries during World War II. France at the time, of course, was occupied by the armies of Nazi Germany, and the amphibious assault, codenamed Operation Overlord, landed some 156,000 Allied soldiers on the beaches of Normandy by the end of the day. Despite the success, some 4,000 Allied troops were killed by German soldiers defending the beaches, with thousands more wounded or missing, and we are forever in their debt. Like many Americans, members of my family served during that war. My grandfather, Army Lieutenant Colonel Frank Collins, did 2 tours of duty in Europe, and my wife's grandfather, who's still with us at 100 years old, served in the U.S. Army Corps, which later became the U.S. Air Force. It's appropriate that we mark this anniversary of D-Day and express our gratitude to all who served, including most notably those who gave the ultimate sacrifice on this day 80 years ago. With that, we'll conclude today's meeting. Our next commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024 at 1 o'clock p.m. Back in Lansing. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn today's meeting.
I second the motion.
We will now have a vote on the motion to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.